Good morning. This is Omar Mohammed, and this is our 36 minutes on anti-Semitism. Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. Felix Klein from the German federal government Office on Jewish Life and Fight Against Anti-Semitism. Welcome, Dr. Klein.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Would it be kind and possible for you to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, my name is Felix Klein. I'm the Federal Government Commissioner for Jewish Life and the Fight Against Anti-Semitism of the German government, a new position that was created in May 2018. I'm the first holder of this position, and in my capacity, I coordinate all government measures in the fight against anti-Semitism. I serve as a point of reference for Jewish communities, and I raise awareness in the German public regarding the fight against anti-Semitism.
Welcome again. As in everything, definitions are very important. In fact, definitions are the foundation of any work. What is the definition of anti-Semitism, Dr. Klein?
Well, I totally agree. It's very, very important to define a problem when you want to solve it. This is like a doctor who wants to do the analysis of a disease. He, of course, first has to analysis and then he can cure it. So anti-Semitism is a rather distracting word, actually, because it suggests a kind of scientific value or so, but it certainly, if we are honest, we should talk about hatred against Jews, Jew hatred. That's the word that would be more apt to describe what we are talking about. Anti-Semitism, the notion was introduced in Germany actually in the 1880s by a public debate, and that was exactly the idea behind it, to create a so-called scientific notion, which actually does not exist. But of course, now in the political language, we adopted now the notion. The German government follows and adopted the so-called IRA working definition of anti-Semitism that clearly states that anti-Semitism is a hatred of Jews and people who are perceived to be Jewish, and people express hatred towards people or their properties only because of the fact that they are Jewish or thought to be Jewish. And according to the definition adopted by the German government, also Israel, when it is understood as a collectivity of people, can also be subject of anti-Semitic incidents.
So what's the current state of anti-Semitism in Germany, Dr. Klein?
Well, it is hard to measure anti-Semitism as such. Of course, we have the anti-Semitic crimes, which are counted in Germany since 2001. We have statistics, and the numbers for 2023 are not finalized yet, but we can be sure that unfortunately it will be. We will have an explosion. A number of anti-Semitic crimes and incidents which we have never seen in Germany. In 2022, we counted around 2,600 anti-Semitic crimes in Germany. This number will, I think, double if we talk about 2023, and most of the crimes were committed after October 7th. We will talk about the Hamas attack on Israel later, of course, I guess, but also the anti-Semitic incidents below the threshold of crime has exploded by 360%, according to statistics published by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's one way to measure anti-Semitism, but also when you look into the opinion polls, what people think about Jews and anti-Semitic narratives, we see that in Germany we have a stable percentage of around 15% of the population that is open to anti-Semitic views, and 40% are open to Israel-related anti-Semitism. So sentences like, I can understand that people don't like Jews when I see what the Israeli government or the Israeli army is doing. This is a typical anti-Semitic narrative, because it makes Jewish people responsible for the acts of the Israeli government, which is not correct if you think about it a bit clearly, because American Jews, for instance, are American citizens, and they don't have any influence on what the Israeli government is doing. So 40% of people in Germany have views open to that, and unfortunately we see that anti-Semitism has entered mainstream society. So it's not only limited to the far right or the far left or Islamist sources, but it has entered into all sectors of society, including universities, the cultural sector, and schools.
You mentioned the notion that many anti-Semitic people usually use Israel as a justification for their anti-Semitism. We have seen on October 7th terrible attacks, and how this sparked massive increase in anti-Semitism around the world. How has the reality changed in Germany? What was the impact? How did the attack impact the anti-Semitism in Germany? If I am not mistaken, it rose by 350% in Germany alone.
Yes, I can confirm this number. And if you think of it, it's really unlogic. I mean, Israel has suffered the most terrible attack since its existence on October 7th. It was a maximum of Jews being killed after the Shoah. That was the day 1,400 people around were killed on one day, on October 7th, and this has never happened since 1945. And if you think that if you realize that the reaction to this is an incredible increase of anti-Semitism, not only in Germany, but around the world, it shows you how illogical, how absurd the situation is, because normally you would expect solidarity with Jews, solidarity also with Israel, with the democracy being attacked by a terrorist organization, but the effect was inverse. So we have a surge of anti-Semitism in every sectors of society, not only in the Muslim community, but what was particularly shocking is that October 7th, the terrorist attack of Hamas against Israel was celebrated in some Muslim communities in Germany. People distributed sweets and made hailing demonstrations because they celebrated the death of Jews. And this is really a terrible observation we had discovered in Germany, because it shows that we permitted the creation of parallel societies, of society bubbles that do not reflect the ideas of mainstream society in Germany. And this, unfortunately, well, we have to react about this, and this is the current state we are working on.
In Germany, Dr. Klein, when one wants to look at the source of anti-Semitism, it's important to understand where it's coming from. So my question is, what is the demography of anti-Semitism? Which groups are responsible for more rise in anti-Semitism than the others, and what might be the motivations?
Well, the most common form of anti-Semitism in all age groups in Germany is Israel-related anti-Semitism, and it is fed by the actions, what happens in the Middle East. But we see that the Israel-related anti-Semitism is more common in Germany in the younger generations, also in the migrant society, although it is not particularly different than in German mainstream society, I would say. And we see that the elderly people in Germany are still much more open to right-wing, the traditional forms of anti-Semitism, conspiracy theories, and other forms. And what we see once again is that it is not limited to extremist forces, but it has entered into mainstream society.
There is an assumption that the Nazi anti-Semitism that was exported to the Middle East is now returning back to Germany. How close to reality is this assumption? Especially, Germany has a very large number of migrants, Muslim migrants coming from the Middle East and other parts of the world. Are there any indication of this type of anti-Semitism among Muslim communities, whether they are originally European, German Muslims, or migrants coming to Germany?
Well, first of all, I would like to stress what we said at the beginning of your question. It is interesting that the traditional anti-Semitism was not existent so much in Muslim and Arab societies before 1948. That was a so-called a terrible European invention, this anti-Semitism. It only entered into Arab societies very much after the creation of Israel. And that it was dispersed in the Arab world very, very quickly. And now we face, of course, a big wave of migrants from Arab countries to Germany, to other European countries too. And of course, when you measure the anti-Semitic thinking of these people who migrated to Germany only recently, the level of or the sympathy for anti-Semitic thoughts is higher than in German mainstream societies, and this is very obvious and easily explainable because in many countries in the Middle East, anti-Semitism is very common. You learn it in schools. Some countries are even still in the state of war with Israel, like Syria, for instance. And of course, there's no big surprise that the opinion about Jews is not very high. And so when people are social and are educated in these countries, they do not give up these opinions from one day to the other, of course. But when we look at the anti-Semitic crime rates in Germany, we discover that anti-Semitic crimes are not being committed to a much higher degree from migrants than from people who live in Germany for a long time. So this is the good news we have, that maybe migrants or people who came to Germany only recently from Arab countries might have opinions which we do not like, anti-Semitic opinions, but they, to say it a bit bluntly, they know how to behave. At least they do not express this form of anti-Semitism in a way that it is registered in the crime rate. And so this is very good, this creates a challenge to our integration policy. This is very important that we tell people that our society in Germany after 1945 is based on distancing yourself from anti-Semitism, because our state, the Federal Republic of Germany, is the answer to an extremely centralized anti-Semitic state we had before. And if you express anti-Semitic views today in Germany as a migrant or as anybody, you should know that the majority of German society does not like this kind of opinion. So this makes it clear in our integration policy that if you want to help people who come to Germany, and we want, of course, to help them to have success in our society, we have to educate them to say that it's not very good and not very positive if they express anti-Semitic opinions.
On a different part of the world, the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States is really unbelievable. It's like on the highest level, the white supremacists, the right wing, and others. In what ways does this mirror the reality in Germany? Has there been any impact of the US or the United States, a type of anti-Semitism on the German public and the neo-Nazis, for example, other anti-Semitic groups?
Yes, unfortunately, anti-Semites also create networks internationally. And some of the developments in the US have influenced also the situation in Germany, particularly when we think back of the pandemic, the conspiracy theories that were spread in the United States had great success in Germany. Also, the so-called QAnon ideology was quite successful in the right-wing circles in Germany. And what we see now is the rise of anti-Semitism in left-wing circles, in intellectual circles in German universities. I don't think that the situation is not that as bad as it is in some U.S. universities, but you see the same influence or the same ideas influence also German universities, and also directly from some U.S. universities have a direct influence of what happens here, and this is all related to Israel. We have a quite considerable influence of the so-called post-colonial studies on what happens here in Israel, or on anti-Semitism. Israel is seen by some people of this theory as the last colonial project of the West, and that the fight against anti-Semitism in Germany is being carried out with racist means, which is of course terrible, and it's not right. But these theories and this thinking has unfortunately some success in Germany, and particularly this is concerning because it is so popular in academic circles, because that shows you that education as such, education alone, is not enough to fight against anti-Semitism. You apparently need to have more factors to really combat it also in these circles.
It's true, because yesterday we were talking about how anti-Semitism has been excluded from the intersectionality theory, and how academia has, in a way or another, contributed to this type of anti-Semitism. On campus, once again in the United States, there has been a big rise in anti-Semitism. What's the situation in Germany on campus?
Yeah, unfortunately, here it's the same. I think, once again, it's not as bad as it is in the US, but we have had an incredible incident that shocked the whole nation, because a student who wanted to become a teacher with Arab origins hit his Jewish fellow student in his face, and he did beat him up so much that this Jewish student had to go into hospital. And he broke his nose, etc. So this is only the peak of the situation in German universities. But I hear from many Jewish students that they are put under pressure, that anti-Semitism is being spread by academic personnel, people who put up posters with dead bodies of killed Israeli soldiers, or only maps that show where Israel is, denies Israel, because the whole map is covered with the Palestinian flag, etc. So anti-Semitic incidents are very common, and also what is particularly bad is that Jewish students here in Germany are being made responsible for the actions of the Israeli army. And this is, of course, absolutely unacceptable. And we have a reaction also to this. Fortunately, we have a very good association of Jewish students here in Germany that speaks up and raises awareness in universities and for the principals, for the administrations, of course. And now we have seen the founding also of an association of Jewish personnel that work in universities, because also professors, teachers, and other academic personnel with Jewish origin suffers really from this sort of anti-Semitism.
I agree with what you said, because it's also in France, and we are also meeting with the French Office on Combating Anti-Semitism. I remember a month ago here at Sciences Po University, a protest that was in support of Palestine, but also were chanting pro-Hamas slogans. They denied the Jewish student from entering, calling her, "You are a Zionist, you do not belong here." Now, looking at anti-Semitism in Germany a decade or two decades ago and today, is it worse? Is it better?
I think what you see is much more visible than 1 or 2 decades ago. The anti-Semitic thinking is stable. What I said at the beginning of the conversation, around 15% of the German population is open to anti-Semitic views. But most of these people did not dare to speak up and to express these anti-Semitic views. Now, this is different. Now, people openly express in the internet, in social media, of course, but also publicly their anti-Semitic thinking. So red lines have been pushed into the wrong direction. Social media and the internet has really contributed very highly, but also the attacks of right-wing circles against our remembrance culture, very much so, because they trivialized the atrocities committed by the Nazis. This is, I think, a general development we see in many countries, that the political debate and the quality of the political debate is deteriorating. The whole debate on any political issue is brutalizing, is cruel. Words are being used that were not being used before, or red lines that were absolutely respected before have been pushed. Just to give you an example, even in the comedy sector, people did dare to make sketches and to make fun of people who suffered in the concentration camps, for instance, to make fun of these people who were victims of the concentration camps. I mean, this is a taboo that has been respected for many years, but not now. So I think it's a combination. The basic is thinking is still there, but now the expression of anti-Semitic that is visible or recognizable in any forms is much worse than 10 or 20 years ago.
Social media definitely had an impact and influenced the not just the rise of anti-Semitism, but as you say, now people are more capable of expressing this anti-Semitism online. Your office is responsible for fostering Jewish life, but also the fight against anti-Semitism. What's being done by the German government to limit the anti-Semitic discourse online?
Well, fortunately now we have a legislation that was passed only a couple of weeks ago, the so-called Digital Services Act, that's implemented in EU regulation, and that now makes the internet platforms responsible not only to delete anti-Semitic and other hate speech within 24 hours after being reported, but now it obliges also the internet platforms to give the data regarding the IP addresses to the police, so that the police can investigate on the people who emanate anti-Semitism, because too many people think that the internet is out of legal rules or so. And that regulation really gives us new instruments in the fight against anti-Semitism online, This is very good. This is on the repressive side. I'm very happy that we have this instrument now. But on the other hand, we also have to enhance our instruments in preventing anti-Semitism with counter speech, with also, for instance, enabling the memorial sites to make more digital offers to people who are interested. This is very important. And in general, I think though we still need a legislation that makes anything you spread in an online medium, like whatever podcast or whatever it is, it has to be that these things have to be treated as if there were media products in the real world, because in our media and press law, we have very clear rules when someone is running a newspaper. So of course, the editors of the newspaper are responsible for the contents being published in a newspaper. And the same should, of course, happen in the internet. We have some internet chatting groups, for instance, in social media like Telegram groups or others that have let's say 30, 40,000 members, and these things work like a media channel, and still there's no legislation about responsibility, about limiting hate speech, and this is the next suggestion I will make after now we have implemented the Digital Services Act in Germany.
This legislation is very important, but it seems very difficult to implement in the United States. The tech companies have more ability to evade the legislations. But do you collaborate with other partners on the European level and also internationally in order to enhance the experience of combating anti-Semitism?
Yes, I'm glad that I have colleagues in many countries now, I think around a dozen or so. And there's an EU working group coordinated by the EU coordinator from the European Commission, Katharina von Schnurbein, and we convene in regular meetings. That is important, but it is important also, of course, to include the dialogue with the US. I'm in close contact to my US colleague, Deborah Lipstadt. I will meet her next week in Malta when we have an OSCE conference on anti-Semitism, because the OSCE is also responsible for the respect for human rights, and anti-Semitism, as we know, is a violation of human rights. And there we develop instruments like the working definition of anti-Semitism that has been respected and accepted by so many countries. But we should be better also in the exchange of data from police, prosecuting officers, etc. There we still need many things to be implemented.
Beside this collaboration, what does your office do in terms of, you mentioned the legislations as a very important step, but on another level, ensuring the safety of Jewish communities, but also providing support in times of surge of anti-Semitism? What type of programs do you provide?
Well, Germany is a federal country, and the federal level, so the level of the central government in Berlin, is not responsible for education. This resides in the responsibility of our 16 states we have. And the first structure I created when I came into office in 2018 was the creation of a joint federal and state commission where we can talk about prevention and develop programs in the prevention of anti-Semitism, educational programs. We now enable every school class that wants to make a trip to a memorial site can do so. We exchange our knowledge on school books, on good projects, strengthening the democracy, because one thing is important. As you said, anti-Semitism is intertwined with other discrimination. If we raise awareness in the fight against anti-Semitism, we automatically raise awareness in the fight against racism or anti-Gypsyism or also hatred against women, etc. So this is important to create alliances in that with the communities, and this is what we did in this commission, and we also raised awareness in the teacher training and in the training of lawyers. It is very important that teachers and lawyers, these are the key professions, I think, that they can discern anti-Semitism as such, and that they know how to deal with it. In the legal sector, this is obvious, but also at schools. We have too many teachers who do not know how to deal with anti-Semitic incidents in schools. And upon our initiative now in many universities, it is compulsory to follow a course on how to deal with discrimination. So, and this is regardless of the subject you're studying, because anti-Semitism can occur in any subject. It's good in the biology class, and in the sports class, as in the arts class. So, of course, everybody who wants to become a teacher in Germany has to know how to deal with this. And we are starting with a very, very good educational program now. It has not reached compulsory state in in each of the 16 states in Germany, but we are on the way for it. And I'm very glad that in the legal sector we have acquired the compulsory training regarding anti-Semitism and the atrocities being committed by the Nazis and the role of the judiciary in the Nazi period. This is everything I just described is compulsory in German law schools. So we have developed instruments. We are on a good path, but of course we need to become much better, and we need to be much more comprehensive.
Dr. Klein, what are your recommendations to policymakers, practitioners, but also to scholars and the public audience?
Well, first of all, we should listen to Jewish voices and organizations who suffer from anti-Semitism, and we should then express solidarity to people who suffer from anti-Semitism. This is very important because I hear so often from Jewish friends or organizations that not only the aggression itself is painful to them, but also the lack of solidarity of other people. So this is important. We have to create awareness, and when we discern, and when policymakers discern anti-Semitism, they have to go against it. This is one we have to create, and policymakers everywhere in the world have to create structures that people who suffer from anti-Semitism have points of references where they can refer to. So, for instance, at universities, every university, I think, should have either an anti-Semitism commissioner or a focal point, at least a person who deals with discrimination, actually not only anti-Semitic but also racist discrimination. This is very important, and that we also engage as policymakers, everybody, society, and make it clear that not only Jews suffer from anti-Semitism, but the whole of society, that the fight against anti-Semitism is directly connected to the fight for our democracy.
And what would you say to the scholars, and as they have responsibility also to raising awareness, especially within the universities itself? It's important that you mentioned universities do need to have their own office of combating anti-Semitism. But on the academic level, what can be done more?
Well, I think much more knowledge about anti-Semitism and about Israel should be organized. And we have, in Germany, I start also the same. We have only 2 research centers that deal with Israel as a subject. We have I think 10 centers that study Great Britain, and 20 research centers that deal with France, but too little knowledge on Israel. and anti-Semitism as such. That should be, structures should be created in universities, also in the US, I think, that enhance the knowledge about Israel. And also the structure should be created, and the universities should offer training regarding the subject of any personnel, because anti-Semitic incidents can happen in any subject at university, and the personnel, professors and others should be trained on how to deal with that. And of course, the principals and the administrations of the colleges and universities should be sensitized and should have an awareness about that. It's absolutely unacceptable that it's up to Jewish students or Jewish professors to speak up when anti-Semitism occurs at universities. The principals and the directorates of the universities, they should address it and help the students, and any student who follows a course should have the right to follow his course without discrimination, without any problems. You should have access to, of course, to rooms and to seminars, etc. And the reality, unfortunately, is different from that. We hear so many cases, including cases from the US, that denies Jewish students, for instance, that the Jewish students are denied access to seminars, etc. And this should also, for the sake of the good reputation of any university and college, should not be allowed.
Dr. Felix Klein, the Government Federal Commissioner on the fight against anti-Semitism. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
This was our 36 minutes on anti-Semitism.